Hi everybody, and thanks for tuning in to this Leland in the Kitchen episode. This is episode number 1, where we are going to be doing a German sweet chocolate cake. So step 1 is we need to boil a potato to make some potato water and to make some mashed potato that we can use in this recipe. So first step is washing the potato. So we're going to wash it off. I usually keep the skin. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. I suggest you cut it into 1/4-inch cubes, and then we will boil it for 15 minutes or thereabouts until it's nice and soft. So this is nearly done cutting it up, and you can use a smaller potato. You can use more potatoes if you want to make something else, but generally we don't need that much potato or potato water, so even a small potato is good enough if you don't have anything else in mind. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the stovetop. So over here we need to put the potato in a pot, and then we're going to fill it up with water so that it just covers the potato. So now we'll cover it, turn it on medium-low heat, and get it started boiling. Once it boils, we'll probably boil it for about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, we can do other stuff. So one of the next things we need to do is get the cake pans ready for use, because we're basically making the cake first, and then we're going to make the frosting after that. So first, get out the cake pans. Okay, so I've got 2 cake pans, and each of these cake pans is approximately 8 inches. They're different, but it doesn't really matter. So the idea is to get some butter and butter them a little bit so that you don't have the cake sticking to it too much. So I'll just use one of the sticks of butter that I have ready for the rest of the recipe. So I just scrape it along the inside a little bit on the bottom, but not much, since we're going to be doing something else with the bottom. So the bottom involves using wax paper, because the butter isn't really enough. Okay, so here's the wax paper, the usual kind of wax paper we use. Just get a little bit, put it at the bottom of it, get a scissors, and just lightly score around the bottom. So hold it still, and lightly score all the way around the bottom. And then you can cut out the piece of wax paper that will basically fit exactly in the bottom of your pan. And as long as you put just a little bit of butter on the bottom of your pan, this should stick. Now, don't worry too much about it being perfect. It doesn't matter that much. But, you know, close enough. And then, if it has any kind of particular direction that it tends to fold, put that, down so that it doesn't fold up while you're trying to use it. And then do the same thing with the other one. Oops. Make sure it's big enough. Okay. So we score this one again. And very lightly so that you don't cut into your countertop. And away you go, cutting it to the right size. And placing it in there. All right. So the two cake pans are ready. We'll put them aside. And now we should get the get ready with the chocolate. So, well, but let's preheat the oven first. So I'll just preheat the oven to 350, and then we'll start with the chocolate. Okay, so the idea is that we're going to use some unsweetened chocolate mixed with the potato water and some other sugar to make the chocolate that goes into the cake batter. So we just need a normal everyday little bowl, something like this, a soup bowl, and then we get the chocolate. So I use this. So we only need So we only need 2 ounces. So each block of 2 is an ounce. So that gets us 2 ounces. Put the rest back. And then we need some maple sugar. So using maple sugar is a key thing you need to do in this recipe. If you use white sugar, it won't be as good. The maple sugar really gives it a very rich flavor. So in this case, we need 3 tablespoons of maple sugar. So I get my maple sugar from a place called Welch's Maple that's online, and you can look that up. And I usually get it in 10-pound bags. It's a little pricey, of course. It's much more expensive than white flour, but I think it's well worth it. Okay, so I've added the maple sugar. I've added the chocolate, so now we just have to wait for the potato to boil. And when it's boiled for 15 minutes, we can do the next step, which is add the hot water to the chocolate mix. In the meantime, we need to continue with the recipe, and so we're going to get a big bowl and start mixing a bunch of other stuff. So let me get the big bowl. And by big bowl, I mean something about this big. And so first thing we need is 2/3 of a cup of softened butter. So I've been letting this butter sit out of the refrigerator all morning, so it's reasonably soft now. And so 2/3 of a cup, so let's see, 1 stick is half a cup. And so to get 2/3, we need, so what do we need? We need so 1/3 of a cup is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 tablespoons. And so we need 11 tablespoons. This is 8. So we need 3 more tablespoons to make 2/3 of a cup. So I'll put this butter in there. And then get 3 more tablespoons. Put that in there. All right. So then we need to get more maple sugar. So 1 1/3 cups of maple sugar is next. I don't think I have enough in here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's not even 1 cup. All right, so I need to get my reserve maple sugar. So this is the last 5 pounds of a 10-pound bag that I ordered quite a while ago. It's easy to get to. All right. We'll finish up this 1 cup of it. And another 1/3. As you can see, I'm not especially careful. Exact amount. I think that's okay. All right, so next we have to cream the sugar and the butter together. And what the heck does creaming it together mean? So all we are really doing is we are taking a fork and we are mixing it up until it gets nice and fluffy. So that's what it means to cream them together. So this is all I'm doing. I'm just mixing it up with a fork. You could use a mixer, an automated mixer if you want, some electrical gadget, that works too. Whatever you're comfortable with, as long as it gets fluffy. So for now, it's not at all mixed even, and eventually it'll get mixed, and then a little bit later it'll be nice and fluffy. All right, so we'll just kind of keep doing this till it all gets mixed up. Now, again, it's really important. You need to use butter, and you need to use maple sugar. All right, the industrial strength American recipe would have you use shortening and white flour, and that's just, it's not good for you, and it doesn't taste as good either. So I highly recommend following the recipe and using these ingredients instead. So we're getting there. I don't know if you can see it. It's getting lumpy, but eventually it'll get very, very fluffy. So just keep doing it until it gets to be where it's fluffy. Otherwise, it won't really do the job that you want in the cake batter. As you can see, it's getting kind of like a single piece. So you've got to keep going. I tend to start going with the fork. I tend to start mixing like that instead of going down and up. I go kind of sideways. I think that helps make it a little better. So, all right, I think we're at the point now where it's kind of fluffy. All right. All right, so that's fluffy, and now we'll do the next step. So we need 3 egg yolks, and eventually we're going to need 3 egg whites. So we need to get 3 eggs and separate them so that we keep the whites for later. So again, another bowl. And any eggs will do. If you like brown eggs better, that's fine. So I'm using white ones. So I will break it on the side, and I will very carefully open it above the bowl and try to get the egg white to fall into the bowl. Sometimes you even have to help it along. And then you're left with a yolk in one of the shells. So just do that 3 times. Again, be very careful to not break the yolk, because then you're going to get yolk in your egg white, which you don't want. Okay, there's another yolk. And one more. All right, 3 egg yolks. So I'll put away the eggs. And now we Mix the egg yolks in with all the sugar and butter. Again, you can do this with an electric mixer instead of a fork like I'm doing it. It's your choice. But eventually it needs to be mixed in nice and thoroughly so that you really can't see any egg yolk when you're done mixing. So there it is, all mixed. Okay, so at the moment, all right, now we need to wait maybe another 5 minutes for the potato to actually get done boiling, so that we can add it to the chocolate, melt the chocolate, and then put it in here. So we're going to wait for that, and so I will be back. Okay, so we have boiled our potatoes, and if you look in here, if you try to take one and smush it against the side, you'll see that it smushes just nicely, so you know it's done. So at this point, you want to save it in another bowl. Save the water in a bowl. Just use your fork to prevent the potatoes from coming out too much. Because we're going to be using this potato water for the chocolate. Alright, and so for the rest of it, you're just going to mash up the potato with a fork. Make it into mashed potatoes. And that's pretty easy to do. If you've cooked it long enough, it just mashes up very, very easily. So you could mash this up in different ways. You know, it's up to you what's good. It's important to get it mashed up all the way, though, because this is going to be going in the cake batter, right? So it shouldn't be at all lumpy when you add it to the cake batter. Otherwise, it won't mix in well. It's gotta mix in really well, so you can't tell it's there. All right, so that's all mixed. So the next step is to take the very hot potato water and get, let's see, we need 1/3 cup of the hot potato water. Pour that into the chocolate. And then mix the chocolate and the maple sugar with the water, trying to get the chocolate to dissolve in this water. It's very hot, so eventually the chocolate will dissolve. I try to help it along by breaking it up into pieces with the fork and then just kind of mixing. Hopefully that will get it to melt all the way. And this is what it looks like so far. Little piece of melted chocolate. Takes a little bit to get it all the way melted. We'll just keep mixing it until it gets all the way melted. Might even be useful to smush the chocolate bits against the side of the bowl. Try to get them to dissolve more quickly. Definitely close. So once it gets to this point, it gets, it's kind of a dark chocolate liquid, and so you really can't see through it. So you kind of have to use your fork to guess if you've got all the pieces dissolved. Kind of search through it with your fork and break them up when you find them. Eventually, there will be no pieces left, and you'll be ready to put it into the rest of the dough, the rest of the batter. Okay, so we've succeeded in doing that, so we'll pour it into our rest of our batter here. See, so you can see it's kind of poured in there. I will mix it in. Again, I'm just using my fork. You can use an automatic mixer if that is more to your liking. It's the only important part of it is really just to get it all mixed in so that it's a nice uniform color, no lumps, and away you go. Once that's mixed in, we will add other ingredients. So in this case, let's see, we need a teaspoon of vanilla, so scrape the sides, try to get all that stuff all mixed in. Okay, so teaspoon of vanilla. I like to use vanilla extract as opposed to vanilla flavor, but it's up to you. I'm not sure it makes that much of a difference. Of course, I've got a new one, so I've got to take the top off. Okay. Again, I'm not too careful about measuring this stuff. Okay, so there's a teaspoon of vanilla. So let's mix that in before we add the rest of the stuff. Alright, so the rest of it involves flour, some of the mashed potato, baking soda, salt, and buttermilk. So let's do the flour first. So we need 1 1/3 cups whole wheat flour. So this stuff we're just going to add without mixing, and then we're going to mix it all in together. So as you can see, I'm not particularly careful about how I measure stuff. It seems to work. So there's 1 cup, again, of whole wheat flour. Do not use white flour in this recipe. And here's 1/3. I like to shake it out like this. It's kind of like the sifting that one is always told to do for white flour when they're making cakes. Alright, so that's whole wheat flour. We need 1/3 cup of mashed potato, which we just made. So we'll go get the mashed potato. Fill up 1/3 of a cup. spoonful. Yeah, seems okay. Add that in, maybe along the side. Make it easier to mix in the other dry ingredients with each other. Again, I'm not real careful measuring things. Okay, so there's the mashed potato. Now we need 2/3 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Yeah, 2/3. Enough to drive you crazy. So just get it close. It's not too critical. I'm going to use my teaspoon measure and just get it close enough by eye. Because I don't have a 2/3 teaspoon measure anywhere. So I make a whole teaspoon of it, and then I just kind of shake it a little bit. Have the rest go back in the container. So that's close. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. That I do have. All right, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Again, no need to be too precise. All right. So let's mix the dry stuff with each other. I tend to do this by just kind of slowly running my fork through those dry ingredients, and then start mixing it in, and in particular get that mashed potato. So I highly recommend you take the mashed potato at the one side and you mix it in with your fork, kind of mashing it more as you go, mixing it in with the liquidy stuff, making it as smooth as you can before trying to mix it in with all the rest. So just kind of do this in this one little corner of the bowl as you do it, and I do it against the side of the bowl with the fork to try to mash it up better and better until it's basically just part of the brown liquid that's already in there. Once that's done, as you mix it, you see all kinds of little lumps and bumps. So just keep mixing and mixing and mixing until you don't really see any bumps anymore, and then you can start mixing it in with the rest of it. So this takes a little bit because potato is pretty sticky stuff, so it sticks to itself really well. So you need to make sure it's well squished and mixed in with the rest of it. And then you can just start mixing it in with the flour and the rest of the other liquidy stuff that's in here. So now that that's reasonable, you can start mixing it in. Okay, scrape the sides, get all that flour off the edges. Mix it in some more. And last but not least, we need to add some buttermilk. So 2/3 of a cup of buttermilk. So we'll use our 1/3 cup measure, which we're using a lot of. part, we're using a lot of things that are a third because this recipe is a modification of a recipe that was designed for a 3-layer cake instead of a 2-layer cake. And so a lot of the measurements, when I divided it up to make a 2-layer cake, came out to have, thirds of some kind. So that's okay. So buttermilk, again, just like the maple sugar, it adds a nice flavor to everything. So I'm going to do 2/3. Now this stuff is really thick. You noticed I shook it up before I poured it in because it's real important to have it well mixed. Okay, so there's 1/3. Now another third. So there's 2/3 of buttermilk. 2/3 of a cup of buttermilk. All right. So we can put that away. All right, mix in the buttermilk, the rest of the dough. We're almost there. So there's one more step after we add this buttermilk. The dough should be getting nice and thick, kind of fluffy even. Let me see if I can show it to you. I don't know if you can tell, but it's getting nice and fluffy. And so now the last step is that we need to take the egg whites that we had and use a motorized mixer in this case. I've tried with my fork alone, and it's just not good enough. I can't do it as well as the mechanized mixers. So we want to take this egg whites and just whip it till it gets nice and stiff. So in order to do that, we are going to use our KitchenAid mixer. Which is over here. Okay, and that's kind of far away, isn't it? Let's see if I can get it closer. Alright, so there's the KitchenAid mixer. And so it comes with a bunch of attachments like that and like that. We are not using those. We are using this wire whiskey one. And so plug it in. No, I guess we won't plug it in quite yet. We'll get it all ready first. Okay, so step one is we need to attach this. So we'll put it in there and attach it. That looks good. Okay, so now we'll take our egg whites, pour the egg whites in. And we will raise the bowl. Oops. Raise the bowl. Plug it in. And set it at low setting. And we'll see how it goes. Slowly increase it until it starts making a difference. This may take a while, so let's increase it even more. Yeah, it's going pretty slow, I gotta say. Just to give you an idea. So it's going kind of slow. It's nowhere near ready yet. So we'll wait a bit as it works on doing its thing. It's kind of slow, but it still does way better than us humans do. Alright, so I got it all the way at 10. Seems to need high speed to make any progress. So it's up to you how you do it. You can use one of the handheld ones that can do the same thing, but eventually it gets very fluffy and stiff. And at that point, you can then start incorporating it into the batter. So have a rubber spatula ready for when you need to do that. And it's getting bubbly, I would say, right now. And it's getting there. But it has a ways to go still. So I just sit here and watch it. There's not much else to do. Bubbles are getting smaller, so that's good. So eventually it's going to, it's going to kind of look like whipped cream, right? But it's whipped egg whites. And this is to help give the cake batter a little more fluffiness to it. So we're getting there. So it's getting there slowly. And it's definitely getting there. We've got kind of a white fluff right now, but it's kind of saggy. So you gotta wait even longer for it to become nice and stiff. Alright, I'm gonna stop it and see how it's doing. holding a peek. Yeah, okay. So that looks pretty good. Let me take it out and I will show it to you. So you can see this is pretty fluffy stuff now. So so it kind of holds its shape. So we'll take that, get what little left in these things into the bowl. Okay, close enough. So now we'll take that over. And we'll mix it in with everything else. Okay, so let's move this back to where we had it. Okay, so now we have a nice bowl full of this white fluffy stuff. So we'll spoon all of it into our bowl with the rest of the batter. And get it all out of there. It's precious. Okay, we've got most of it out. And now instead of using the fork, we're going to use this spoon to mix it in. And so we're going to lift up from the bottom in order to do the mixing. So, like that. Okay, so we're not actually going to try to break the fluffy stuff with this. We're gonna let the batter do that. So we're gonna just slowly go in from the bottom, lifting up and turning it as we go until it all gets mixed in. And you know, that'll be a while. So don't be too much in a rush to get this mixed in. Kind of going from the edge towards the middle, bottom, and then just kind of folding it over like that. And you want to mix it in thoroughly, so you don't want to see any white fluff when you're done mixing. Every piece should be gone, mixed in with the rest of it. So at this point, you have a dough batter that looks kind of like this. Okay, so that's everything. Now we need to add it to our pie tins and then bake. So try to do half and half. Otherwise, the baking time will be different for each of them. So do what you can to make it half and half. Just kind of start pouring it in, something like a half, and then pour in this stuff, the other half. See how you did. It's never easy to get it exactly the same, but you know, close. All right, so at this point we're gonna move it around gently until it fills the cake pan. All right, then we'll take the rest of this and I think we'll add it to this one. He seems to be the smaller of the two. So get every last drop of it out of the bowl. Don't want to waste it. It's good stuff. Okay, I tend to use my finger. My hands are clean. All right. Again, shake him around until he's flat. All right. So we have both of them. So now we put them in the oven and we bake them for 35 to 40 minutes until a toothpick comes out clean. Alright, so at this point I tend to clean up a little bit and then I will start making the frosting while this stuff is still cooking. So it's ready to go when the cake comes out of the oven. So right now I'm just kind of rinsing out the bowls that I no longer need. And I'll start gathering the ingredients for the frosting, which is of course an important part of any cake, having nice frosting. So in our case, it's going to be based on maple sugar again, and some coconut and chopped pecans. So we'll go through the process of chopping the pecans so you know how fine to chop them, because I think it's important that it be very, very fine. So it provides flavor and a little bit of crunch, but not too much. Otherwise it's kind of a chore to eat the cake. Nuts that are too big. Alright. So I'm still rinsing out bowls just to keep them from becoming too crusty and difficult to wash later on, because I really don't have time to wash them right now. Okay. One more bowl and I can start with the frosting. So the frosting is going to get cooked. So there's as usual, there's butter in it, but there's also some evaporated milk, and so with that and the sugar, we mix that all together and kind of cook it so that it can kind of get thicker, so that the frosting is kind of like fudge. Okay, so the recipe for the frosting. So the first thing we're basically going to do is grab the evaporated milk and the maple sugar, some more egg yolks and butter, and mix it all in a saucepan. Again, we're going to reuse the saucepan we used for the potatoes because he likes to do dishes. So we'll just rinse out that and then start using it for the frosting. Almost there. We dirtied a lot of dishes already. Alright. So, and I forgot. Okay, I gotta take my mashed potatoes and put them in something to keep them for later. So, let me use that. And we'll just, I like to use some these jars that we have left over from peanut butter. We wash them out and we use them for our leftover containers. And I think it's better than having everything stored in plastic, because eventually that plastic is going into you, and that can't be good. Okay, we have all the mashed potato in our leftover container. So we'll save that for another recipe. Meanwhile, alright, I gotta rinse this out because it's still coated with potatoes, right? Mashed potatoes. We don't want mashed potatoes in our frosting. Get all those mashed potatoes out of there. Longer than I thought. That's okay. Very sticky stuff. Of course, that's part of why we're using it in this recipe. That sticky stuff. All right. All ready to go. So, we'll use the same saucepan that we used for the mashed potatoes to make the frosting. So, 1 cup of evaporated milk. Okay. So for evaporated milk, it tends to get stuck. You'll have a big lump of solid stuff at the bottom. So the day before, I turn it upside down in the cupboard, and hope that some of that stuff gets loose. And the next day, I shake it many, many times throughout the morning before I start making this. And I'm hoping, that that's done reasonably well. Okay, so mixed up. All right, so I'll take the saucepan. Now I'll use one of these. Use one of these to open the top of the evaporated milk. Make sure it's evaporated milk, not that sweetened condensed stuff. So I'll make a opening on one side and then a littler opening on the other side to let in air so that it's easier to pour. And now, what was it we wanted? We wanted a cup. Okay, so we got a cup. Pour that evaporated milk into the cup. And then pour that into the saucepan. Okay, and this you can save for another recipe because there's a little bit left in that can. Alright, so then we need a cup of maple sugar. Again, this recipe is big on maple sugar. Everywhere that what was white sugar in the original recipe is now maple sugar. It's much better. But of course, it's pretty darn expensive too. But well worth it. If you're going to make a recipe, you might as well make it good. Okay. So, I'll just fill this up. If this were dry, I'd just dunk it in there, but I'm just going to spoon it in there till I get a cup. And then add this to the evaporated milk, and at that point I'm going to mix it in. I think it's always best to mix things more than less. Okay, well, mix all that sugar in there. Make sure you get it all. And then I'm going to use a fork, nice clean fork, to mix that sugar in with the milk. Now, 3 more egg yolks. So this is not your usual cake frosting where it's just butter and sugar. So 3 more egg yolks. Again, at this point, I'm not sure there's any point in saving the whites, but we're going to do it anyway just because maybe we can come up with something later. So again, we're trying to get the whites separate from the yolks. Sometimes you have to cut the white with the edge of the shell to get it to let go. Alright, there's 1. Two. And 3. Yeah, sometimes the shells don't break in a particularly easy way, but you can still do it. All right, 3. So there's 3 egg yolks. And we'll just put the whites aside for some other time when we need egg whites. So at this point I will try to mix in these egg yolks as best I can. It may take a bit of mixing to get them to mix in reasonably well, because egg yolks, they try to stay together. Okay, that'll do. Now let's get the butter. All right, put away the eggs and get the butter. So, like most frosting recipes, we definitely have sugar and butter, but we have a bunch of other stuff too. So, a half cup of butter is 1 stick. Pretty sure, yeah. So just put that in. No need to mix at the moment. You're going to be melting that once we start cooking. Okay, so now we go to the stove top and start heating it up. And we want to do, kind of medium heat. Nothing too big. Yeah, maybe medium low is even a better idea. So it's up to you what medium low means. Basically, if it starts making noises like it's boiling and stuff like that, stop. You're too high. So try to get it a little lower. So you're going to do that probably 10 to 15 minutes, somewhere in there, until it gets kind of thick. And you're going to want to keep stirring it, occasionally as it goes. So first thing you got to do is get that butter to melt. And getting the butter to melt isn't too hard. So there's the pan, and there's what it looks like. The stick of butter in there. So we're going to work on getting that to melt. So we'll cut it up into pieces with our fork to help get it to melt quicker. And then we'll kind of just keep stirring, trying to make it make the edges of those hunks of butter melt even faster. So you can see how high my gas stove is at the moment. So far that's a reasonable height. It may start getting a little crazy. I may have to turn it down a little bit. We'll see. So as you do this, note how easy it is to stir. Right? The thickness of this is an important thing to notice, and it's not something I can give you a number for, and you just kind of have to get used to it. So right now this is not thick. Right? This is just getting there. Right? So we're still trying to get the butter to melt. There's only a few little bits left. And then, let's see, it's already been on the stove for maybe a couple of minutes. So maybe at least 10 more minutes to go. And then we'll see how much thicker it is as we try to stir it. And when it gets really thick, then we know we're done. All right, so we have succeeded in getting rid of most of the butter bits. So there you can see it. And we will work on other parts of the frosting while it cooks. So we'll just kind of leave that and come back to it occasionally to make sure it doesn't go kablooey on us. But we have other things we need to do for this frosting. So one last stir, and I'll go back over here. And now we need our cutting board and some pecans, and we know we need to get about 1 cup of finely chopped pecans. So again, get that cup measure ready. And also that. All right. So my impression of pecans is that it takes me approximately 2 fists full to make a cup. So hopefully that'll be somewhat close, and then I'll get more as needed. Now these things, you want 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. I mean, you want these things to be pretty darn teeny, okay? It has to be finely chopped. And so just go through and just kind of randomly chop them up until it gets almost powdery, not quite, because if it's too coarse, it won't be a good frosting. So just kind of keep chopping away. There will be bits and pieces throughout that stay big, and you got to go after them. Don't let any big pieces remain. So the rest of it will get teenier, and that's okay. So let me show you what this looks like so you get an idea of how fine it needs to be. So here's what it looks like. Really, really fine little bits. So maybe even a little more. And take that, put it in your cup measure, see how much you got. Yeah, I don't have nearly enough. Okay, so I need more. I've only got maybe three-quarters of a cup. I'm gonna go give the stuff a stir. It's been boiling. Oh boy, maybe that's too much, but I can't remember if it's supposed to boil or not. So for now, I think I'll leave it boiling. Gave it a stir. Let's get another handful. So be on the lookout. Watch the thing. The stuff gets very frothy, and it can increase in volume dramatically, kind of quickly. And so just keep watching on the stovetop so that it doesn't boil over. Okay, and we notice that we're maybe 8 minutes in, so we've got several more minutes to wait before that is worth looking at to see if it's thickened yet. It's certainly not not any thicker than it was when we started so far. Alright, so keep chopping away at these guys. Make sure you get every little bit needs to get chopped smaller. And inevitably there's going to be some that you miss. I mean, it's okay. Occasionally somebody will have a slightly bigger piece of pecan in their frosting. That's okay. As long as they're not all big, it'll be fine. Alright, so I think that will make a cup. Yeah, that makes a cup. And as you know, I'm pretty cavalier with measurements, so this is a little more than a cup. That's okay. Alright, so what's left is this coconut. We need 1 1/3 cups of coconut, but that's easy. We just pour it out, so we don't have to do any pre-processing for that. Alright, so we're going back to our saucepan with the boiling sugar and such. And it's definitely boiling like crazy, and it is not getting thick yet. So we'll just keep doing this until it does. Perhaps turn it down slightly, since it's kind of boiling over. Okay. So we'll get this ready to pour out. Meanwhile, let's put some stuff into leftover containers. I don't know if we'll ever use it, but we'll put the evaporated milk in something. Put it in the fridge. And then the egg whites. So 3 egg whites. Save those in one of our leftover jars as well. Alright, I'm stirring again. It's getting a little bit thicker. So I think we're definitely getting there. We're very close. Alright, I think we're done. So we'll turn off the saucepan heat, and now we will add in the rest of the ingredients. So there's a teaspoon of vanilla. Again, I use extract as opposed to flavor, but it's your choice. So vanilla, let's give it a stir. And then we'll put in the nuts. And we'll put in the coconut. So we have a cup of finely chopped pecans, and now we're adding 1 1/3 of this dry, unsweetened, flaked coconut. This It's very dry. Okay. So don't get the sweetened stuff. I don't get the sweetened stuff because I don't want the white sugar that they use to sweeten it with. But whatever works for you. Alright, so now we'll just mix it all together. So this is what it looks like. It's got all the coconut and pecans all mixed in. So now we can just set this aside and wait for the rest of the cake, so the cake is still baking in the oven for another 10 minutes or so. So we'll wait for that before we do our next step. Okay, so the alarm has rung and we can now look and see how our cakes are doing. So the whole idea is to see if a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. That's how we decide if it's cooked or not. So we'll assume they're done and we'll take them both out and then we'll check. They look very nice, pulled away from the edges. Which is really the best we can hope for. So now we take a toothpick and we put it in the middle, and it needs to come out clean. So this is clean. There's nothing clinging to it. If there were anything clinging to it, it would have a different color. It would have little crumbs of kind of liquidy stuff attached. So they're done. So now we'll set the timer for 5 minutes and let them cool a little bit before we do anything else. All right, we've set the timer. Okay, so it's about 30 seconds from it being time for the cakes to cool. So one of the things I like to do is to use a cooling rack like this one in order to get these out of their pans. So you put that on top, but they're cool enough you can hold them now. So take that and invert it. And normally I would tell you to cut the sides with a knife to make sure it comes out, but these look pretty good without doing that, so I didn't bother. So there it is, inverted onto the cooling rack. So at this point I need to carefully remove the wax paper. So grab a corner somewhere very carefully and try to peel it, kind of, don't peel it up, peel it across like that. And be very careful near the edges. Things may be caught, like this one. Sometimes it takes a little bit of finesse to make sure you don't cause any trouble. You don't want to make the cake break anywhere. Alright, that looks good. Alright, so we have a few little bits and pieces here and there that definitely sticking. Mostly due to our making it a little bit too big, and so they're riding up along the edge. Okay, so we got rid of that. And there's our cake without the wax paper. So now you could put it on a plate, or you could put it on a nice serving thing like this. So this is made for cakes. So I take this, so I'll move this out of the way, put this right here so you can see me do it. So now this is the hard part. You actually have to pick it up with your hands and move it there. Now that can be very tricky. Hopefully you don't break it when you do that. If you want, you could instead put this on top of here. So you could have left the cake on the tray, taken your plate, put it on top, and then inverted, just like I did when I took it out of the pan. That works too. Either way's good. Okay, so before we put the next layer on top, we need to put the frosting on. But before we do that, we are going to put the next layer on here so it has time to cool while we're frosting this part. So put that on there, invert, hope it comes out. It's not, we screwed up. Let's try the knife edge business, which I guess we needed for this one. Okay. Now invert it. Yay. Okay, so we'll leave that aside while we frost this one. So let's frost it. So kind of divide the frosting in half in the saucepan. It should be thick enough that it'll kind of remember, and then just kind of heap it on there. No need to be too concerned. Just try to make it go all over, and then use a knife to spread it. I don't do anything special. I just have a normal everyday knife. And I don't tend to make this frosting go on the vertical edges of the cake. I just do it on the top. I think it's possible to do it on the vertical edges, but it's too hard, so I don't do it. Basically, it has issues. Everything falling down and making a mess. So this way I don't have to worry about it. It all stays. I know the kids don't have any droppings to lick up, and so if you want that, you can definitely do the vertical sides And we'll have the kids clean up the mess. Okay, so that's pretty good. Don't have to be too perfect, really. And now back to our second layer. We need to get the wax paper off carefully. And I think we're doing pretty good. Okay, there we go. And now this goes on top of the first layer. So there's the first layer. Carefully grab it so it doesn't break. As you can see, a little piece fell off. Details. There's always something. So there we go. And now we put the rest of the frosting on. And we're getting there. Okay. So, scrape out every little last bit of it because it's too good not to eat it all. Okay, now smooth this out on the top. Alright, so that's ready. So the idea now is to eat it. And ideally, you eat it right now. It's nice and warm, moist. It's at its best. Now if you have to wait, like I do, this is the day before Thanksgiving and we have to wait for Thanksgiving. So on the day that you eat it, I highly recommend that you serve out the pieces and then use your microwave oven to warm it up. And I recommend a 15 seconds on high. That warms it up enough for me. Makes it much more moist and even warms up the frosting a little bit, makes that a little more tender, I guess you could call it. And so it's a win-win all around if you just warm it up a little bit. It's still pretty good if you don't warm it up, but definitely don't have it cold. I think cold is awful. So that's that. That's our that's our cake recipe for the day. A variation on it, you can make cupcakes instead if you want. So this recipe will make about 2 dozen cupcakes, and the cupcakes, they just get baked for maybe 30-35 minutes at 350, and then you can frost the cupcakes just like we frosted the cake. So so that works too, especially if you want to bring something into to work or something. So so this is it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.